Hello Internet, I'm Richie and welcome to Sounds of Stadia SideQuest, the show where we take a step off the critical path and explore more of what the video game world has to offer. On this week's show, we're going to be talking about the problems caused to Stadia by the pandemic. Of course, I'm joined this week by the host of Sounds of Stadia podcast, Mr. Chris.
Hello, Stadios.
And it wouldn't be SideQuest if I didn't introduce the techie teacher himself, Mr. Tom.
Hi, it's me, Mr. Tom.
As I said, we're going to be talking about how Stadia has been affected by the global pandemic. The little thing that happened, you might be aware of it. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon for notifications. YouTube memberships start from as little as 99p, where you can get early access to SideQuest, as well as nice little emojis and badges to show off to all your friends and join us in the YouTube livestream chats, such as where we have every single Thursday night, where we'll play everything from Resident Evil to Killer Queen Black, and many, many more games. Oh, recently me and Chris played some F1. As I mentioned, Chris is the host of the Sound Stadia podcast, which comes out every Monday on YouTube and podcast services. And if you want to join the discussion any further, get down to the link below in the description and you'll find a link to our Discord. So, pandemic. It sucks.
It's a thing.
How exactly does it suck for Stadia?
Yeah, so I think we should start off this episode probably by caveating that we know everything's shit. We know it's been a long, arduous 16 months or 15, whatever the hell it is now. We've all came to terms with it. It's our life as it is. But we are getting towards the end of it, thankfully, especially here in the UK. Vaccination program's going good. We're all in high spirits. The summer's on the horizon. Everyone has got that little bit of energy, that extra spring in their step. As we've even just before recording this, we've spoke about like getting together again for the first time. But I think we wanted to talk about this a bit rather than like address the elephant in the room almost. Like, how has this pandemic impacted Stadia's rollout? And again, this doesn't forgive them for all the bad marketing PR beats and the launch library and all the other little bits and intricacies. But we can't deny, I don't think, that it's had an impact on every business, every individual on the planet. So I think probably start off, rewind the clock right back to March 2020, when we were all told that there's going to be a lockdown and how that impacts things. I think the first thing for Stadia was GDC was cancelled. It would have been the anniversary of Stadia being announced at GDC, so we knew they were going to come with some kind of thing to talk about, and it never happened. GDC got kind of just disbanded, if I recall. There was no digital event. They did something, I think it got delayed, but there wasn't like a big forum thing like they would. I think Rich, you said a few times, like this is where they meet developers and have those behind the scenes conversations around gaming projects, engine plans, and how Stadia can it's where a lot of the business conversations happen behind the scenes. And it just didn't happen.
With something like GDC, when the public eyes are on it, it's ad revenue, it helps support the event, all that sort of stuff. The key thing about GDC is developers taking in these lectures, the networking that goes on. Google could have had the opportunity to show people their platform, show the press the platform.
And it didn't happen.
Nope.
Yeah, it didn't.
So it's
no hands-on, no opportunities to do that. We know, like, I mean, it's pretty certain to say that Google, the Stadia team, will have sent out sort of like promo kits to a lot of journalists and so on. But I feel like when you get something like, let's say you are in one of those positions and you probably get a lot of different parties sending you things to try out, to try to review and so on, because that's what they want. They want the publicity for it, right? If you're getting loads of things sent to your door, you probably have like a backlog of things. And when you're in your own home or your own workplace, you're probably a little bit less likely to go through the pile, try to pick things out and go through all of them. But if you're at an event where, like GDC, where it's meant to be hands-on and you're meant to be doing that, it's probably going to be a lot more accessible in a way. You don't have to set it up. It's probably set up for you as well. And I just feel like with the environment and the idea of the environment, that it probably would have been a little bit smooth sailing, shall we say, ahead of an official launch or following an initial launch, really.
Well,
Mm.
what
I just think about all the.
I mentioned the gaming press already, but
Yeah.
I think one of the things we've bemoaned over the last 18 months is how apathetic, stroke, bordering negative the gaming press is towards Stadia. There's basically no coverage until a massive negative story comes, and then it's just a case of, oh, look how bad Stadia is, and then for a couple of weeks, and then they move on. But they never go into the good things that happen. It's barely even like usually at best you're looking and the game in like an article about a game at the end they'll go and come to Stadia, and that's sometimes the most we get from the mainstream gaming press.
Yeah, I think the most we've had is the Cyberpunk beat when Cyberpunk played better on Stadia than it did on the current gen consoles at the time.
But even that, the story was centered around how bad it was on other platforms, and oh yeah, it works fine on Stadia as a afterthought.
Yeah, and I do think you're right. Having all the journalists, Tom, in that one location and talking about the techie intricacies of it and the power behind the cloud and getting people to understand how things work server side and how the latency is like not affected, and then putting it into like a physical demo for them to all try out. This, like I said, they would have had all these grand plans of talking to developers and getting these deals hashed out between companies and publishers and saying like, look, if you want to bring your game to Stadia, here are the tools to support that, and how it can benefit people financially. And I know they go to like parties and they have a good time at GDC, these developers who are cooped up in their rooms working away on games all year round. This is the one time of the year they actually get out to almost like celebrate with their peers.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen. And this was less than a year into Stadia's existence. So I do think it will have had detrimental effects. And we've seen the same happen this year with GDC going digital again. So it's 2 years on the bounce. They've not been able to do the groundwork, essentially.
It's not just GDC, it's E3, it's Paris Games Week, all these big gaming conventions, the Game Awards, that, again, I keep coming back to press because I think press is the key here. I don't think, as it stands, that Stadia does have as much credibility with the gaming press at the moment, because when they've been sat at home for a year, I must admit, if you're in the gaming press and you've got a PlayStation 5 sat there, you've got an Xbox Series X sat there, you've probably got a decent game, you might even have a decent gaming PC and a Switch, you're looking at Stadia and going, what are you offering me? Yeah. And it's relatively little. But if you're at GDC or an E3 and you're in your hotel room and you need to do some capture for a game, and you've had to lug your PlayStation down, and then you meet a Google exec and goes, oh well, here's your Stadia. This is a Chromecast dongle. This is a controller. That's all you need to carry.
Yeah.
Suddenly theoretically you can already see how that is, but I think it'd be different if you actually get to experience it. And again, Stadia fumbled the launch. That's no sugarcoating that.
Yeah.
But then it's just getting...
Yeah, journalists, like, they control the narrative.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Like, in an alternate universe, if Kotaku, IGN, everyone had said, like, this works, this is amazing, and we've played these games and it runs the same on the go almost as it does on like a $500 piece of hardware. And like you said, Richie, they're going off to these events because journalists generally travel around quite a lot. They go to events, they spend a lot of time on flights, traveling, in hotels. And the big difference would have been, oh, Cyberpunk's out, but we're at a big event launch thing for PlayStation, wherever it is this week. I'm in a hotel, and rather than carry everything around on the commute, on the toilet, in and amongst between meetings, they're having little tiny like mini LAN party reminiscent times with their phones, the tablets, the laptops, using the power of Stadia. And we've had over a year now of journalists being locked down in their own homes. And if they've got crap internet at home, Stadia hasn't worked for them, but that's not their use case. And I do honestly think that's probably had the biggest effect than anything.
Oh, God, yeah. While we're talking journalists, I want to make a clear distinction. I'm not talking about the bad faith actors who are just in it to get a quick clickbaity title. I'm talking about the people who are largely disinterested in Stadia. And then when they do get told they have to play a game on Stadia, you get the articles where they almost seem surprised. Like, they've heard all the negative stories, like terrible latency, and it's like, seems fine to me. They're the ones like it's not. This is when I say they're not negative people. It's largely more apathy to the platform.
Yeah, there's almost like this little just kind of piece that they've got in their heads that it doesn't work, and they just forget about its existence. Because you said before recording again, Richie, I listen to so many gaming podcasts where you hear them say, "Oh, I'd love to just take this on the go. I'd love to do that." And Stadia's literally sat there with these AAA titles that you can take on the go with things like Ubisoft Connect now that will take your save file over, so you can play Valhalla, The Division, Destiny, all of these huge titles on the go on your phone or your tablet or whatever. And how many people I listen to who are veterans of the industry sit there going, "Yeah, but it's just on my console and under my TV." And it's like, it's not. You're telling yourself it is because you're not clued in with the reality of this and Luna and GeForce Now and all these other things that give you the ability to detach the wires. They almost like shut themselves off from it because it's only PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, PC. That's it.
The other side of the same coin, though, is this is the reality that Stadia's existing in. What are Google doing to address the situation? Journalists, they're not going to address it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but that boils down to probably our next point, which is marketing, right?
Yep.
It's been a pandemic. Every company's had to reshift and restructure, and spending has probably changed and differed from the original outlet. I, for one, see Stadia adverts on YouTube. I get the odd email about them, but we're in that ecosystem. I am yet to see any presence out there in the real world for that average gamer. Not a thing.
I wonder how much of that is targeted as well, because you're regularly doing Google searches for things with Stadia in the name.
There were some adverts out there with the likes of the launch of Cyberpunk. I remember listening to Kerrang Radio of all things. Put Kerrang on the Google home hub downstairs as well. And I remember them talking about Cyberpunk on there, and like the advert would come on where it would say play it on Google Stadia immediately and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. Like you could actually hear that. And I think they did it on the TV as well. But it was very much specifically advertisement alongside the talk of a new game being released, not about the platform itself and the existence of it. And yeah, I don't really think that when there's not been a lot of things going on for people, it surprises me that they didn't take the opportunity to capitalize on that when more focus was on media and consumption of media as opposed to going about our everyday lives.
I think it's part of Google's mindset, because Google, they're one of the biggest tech companies in the world. They don't really need to throw huge amounts into marketing when anytime someone wants to learn about anything, they're using Google.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're necessarily that Google. I don't think Google are necessarily that good at marketing. And I think it's also worth bearing in mind as well, there's a difference with the Cyberpunk ads. There's a difference between reminding people this thing exists and selling it to them. And sometimes I see, like, when it's tied in with a game, you're kind of reminding people that this platform exists rather than selling it.
Yeah. But again, I think a big shift with people not being allowed out the house, essentially, during lockdown. Yeah. I'm a massive advocate of saying that when the world returns to normal, we need to see a Stadia podium within game stores, supermarkets. Yeah. It needs to be there. Even if it is just with a digital code for a game, it needs a physical presence to get in people's mind's eyes on the high street. We need to see the odd billboard that has Resident Evil Village, but then it has half of the billboard is a Stadia controller, a Chromecast, and the logo. We need to see things on the side of bus stops and big daft promos and Piccadilly Circus for whatever it may be in London and Paris and Berlin and all these capital cities, because that's how you get the mind's eye market share. Then people will start to associate you with gaming and the games industry, and then that goes a long way to getting people to click the link when it then pops up in their YouTube ad, when it pops up in their news feed on social media. They won't click it if they don't know what the hell it is. And if you see just a big red S, what does that mean?
What we need
click to play. What does that mean? Nothing.
We need to have people like on the tube in London or the subway in New York or wherever you are, playing like things like Assassin's Creed Valhalla or like Resident Evil 8 on their phone on the commute to work, and people going, "How on earth are you doing that?" And asking them questions.
I'd still caveat that with the Wi-Fi on the London Underground, and I imagine New York subway is a long way from being latency, let alone connectivity levels. But it's underway.
It's improving.
There are things underway to get it. Oh, every day. But just out there in the real world. We saw it happen with the Switch.
Sat in train stations, like going about the business, I've got half an hour to kill. I'll play a game of FIFA on my phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, how often do you see, like as gamers, we know we're like usually quite closed off individuals. We hide in our rooms for hours in the dark and play video games.
We build entire studios in our houses to hide off even better.
But when you're out in the real world and you see people playing a Switch or something, don't you go like, oh, look, a fellow gamer or something? You do have that little like appreciation where you almost, if you made eye contact, you'd be like, so I get why you're playing. Yeah. Whereas, yeah, you're right, Richie. Like someone playing FIFA or something out there in the real world, it would be like, he's playing FIFA on his phone. And then you get that curiosity to make you think, like, how is he doing that? FIFA on mobile, and there's the app, the game doesn't exist.
And not everyone wants to carry a Switch with them all the time.
No.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got your phone, the thing is, with your phone, it's in your pocket. Switch is probably in a backpack or something. You can just pull it out.
Sure. Yeah, it needs to bring it. Yeah. Gaming, Stadia can, and Luna and all the others should be bringing gaming into the more public mindshare. Gaming's bigger than ever now. The lockdown has escalated that massively. More people playing games than ever before. The money in this industry is huge. And it's becoming more mainstream, I think, and it's only going to improve over the next decade. Yeah, and Stadia needs to ride that wave by shouting about it. It's like, talk about your success, what works well. Hiding behind your own YouTube ads isn't going to win you the battle.
I wonder all them stuff we've described as marketing techniques, like seeing people out in the wild playing it. I wonder if that was part of Google's plan to help that side of it drive it forward, but then the pandemic obviously just killed that entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Then what's your plan?
Yeah.
Well, this is it. That's the kind of the crux of the episode, isn't it? It's like, realistically, there will be an alternate universe out there where it didn't happen. There was billboards, adverts, the journalists all got to go on it. It worked well. They went back to the hotel rooms. It worked well. They went on the road, back to their homes. It worked well. And they get back and sit down and record their podcast or write their review and go, I've been playing Stadia all week across multiple places. It works well, albeit the library's still shit. But it'll get there with time. And instead, they all went back going, I haven't played it. I've been on lockdown. I haven't seen any marketing for it. There's barely any games. Bad. Oh, and now they've cancelled the game studios. So I can see where the narrative comes from. But this is where Stadia needs to flip it back the other way.
I took a taxi to work this morning. I sat in the back playing Stadia, and it was on data, and it worked fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line that's such a powerful line that can go in like an article.
In the big games, I think we'll do it because we get like the library's getting better. We've got Village, we've got all the Ubisoft titles, we've got Cyberpunk, we've got FIFA now. It's Jedi Fallen Order free this month. Like, there's so much good to talk about. Like, you can't play on the move any other way right now. Like, you switch in playing Jedi Fallen Order, in playing Cyberpunk. As good as the Nintendo Switch is, it can't do it. Luna's still only US beta only. Like, it needs to ride this wave and get that message out there before it ends up being, like, again, sometimes the front runner isn't the winner of the race in the end.
You're absolutely
For all the good work Stadia's doing, I don't want Luna or xCloud or something to just come in and sweep it aside and go, you laid the groundwork, we're going to market this bad boy, like, put all the money towards it and become number one.
xCloud especially is incredibly well positioned.
Mm-hmm.
I do think xCloud is basically going to be the number one cloud gaming platform, regardless of what Stadia does, because they've got that Microsoft legacy behind them, and the way Microsoft are buying studios at the moment. The next Elder Scrolls 7 or something could be an xCloud exclusive, like.
Yeah, and that benefits from that Netflix model Stadia often gets tarnished with. That is Game Pass.
God,
you do pay a subscription, and then it works. So you sign up, you get your library, and now you can play on the go. And xCloud obviously needs to up its resolution benefits, and
that's something
but that's a matter of time and
exactly
resource.
Yeah, that's a side quest and a side quest. That's a bit of a thing that always annoyed me when it's Netflix for gaming. It's like, no, it isn't. And then when people get annoyed when it wasn't that, it's like, it never was that. They never claimed it to be that, and you can't just expect everything free. Like,
but in hindsight, is that the better approach? Because I'd argue Microsoft throwing billions at it now is going to be beneficial long term. Because let's look at Game Pass's numbers,
yes,
and the way they market it as well. It's like, I mean, time will tell. Time will tell.
It really depends. It's a different. We can have that as a different side quest. But let's get back to the pandemic.
No. Let's get away from the pandemic. But I know what you meant.
Yeah. How do you think like things like job loss and uncertainty over people's jobs may have impacted Stadia? That's been a huge thing for the last 18 months.
Yeah. I think on the one hand, you've got to look at it. There's a twofold way of looking at it. It's obviously takes priority in people's lives. First of all, so people may have had to, focus more time on things like looking for new jobs or seeking some sort of method of employment, or looking for like how furlough affects them here in the UK in particular. So that sort of diverts your attention away from things you might have just been enjoying as part of a hobby. But at the same time, the pandemic also, for what it's done positively, has granted us all a lot more free time and a lot more like time to be able to focus on things that make us feel. I'm trying to think of what the word would be here for this, but like just to focus on our own lives, I suppose, in a way here. When it comes to job losses, though, there's a financial aspect of Stadia which is very beneficial, which is the what we've talked about historically in terms of the cost of paying for a box, paying for a console, and so on. When it came to Christmas in particular, when the pandemic was rife in terms of affecting people's salaries, and furlough was still up in the air really as to how is it going to continue and so on. Stadia, I think, has really sort of benefited in a way there of its position in the market for that. But again, there was no real driving force. Sorry to focus back on the marketing, but there's no real driving force in that run up to Christmas to argue that point in this country. In fact, I'd say it was actually very mute here in the UK. But in terms of how it's affected, like it's affected people as individuals in terms of like their affordability for gaming, and could have really sort of benefited there from Stadia being sort of made front and center as saying, look, you don't have to worry about financial implications of what's going on in the world. We can still offer you the thing that you truly love to enjoy, and you can continue your hobbies. This is a method of being able to do so with the things you've already got. If we were to look at it from the other side of things in terms of the development of games and the gaming industry and what's been going on there, Stadia, again, to put positivity where it should be, we know that the platform has really sort of opened up the ability to allow people to work remotely and be able to continue the development of these games. But has that been really spread wide enough to studios to really sort of encompass what they could benefit from with this remote working? I don't know. I don't really know.
A kind of inside baseball kind of thing that we've not covered is a lot of people, we've seen a couple of indie developers talk about it, but during everything that's been going on, a lot of people who've been developing for Stadia said, actually, because the game is developed in the cloud, it's allowed multiple teams from working from home locations to edit the game, amend the game, write code for the game, and it all goes into almost like the master copy, which is on the Stadia server side. And I've seen a few indie teams discuss that like openly, saying actually working from home hasn't had that much of impact, because unlike developing for a console, you have a dev kit in the studio that they all work on and they have to go and copy the code over to and do whatever the magic they need to do. Whereas Stadia is all in the cloud anyway. So actually people going home, it's probably opened their eyes to how much work they can do from different locations with minimal impact. Not that we really see that side of things, I guess, and there was no games being made exclusively, but I don't think it slowed it down as much as it would have done if it was a box they were making specifically for.
I'd always say, though, any sort of creative endeavour is restricted when you're not around other people. Being around other people and something that's creative and collaborative is better than being apart. It's doable when you're apart, but I think sometimes when you're working side by side with people, it is easier to get ideas across.
You can high five.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, there's no bugs. High five. Oh, there's a bug.
Yeah,
let's retract the
Whereas
high
five. It has to be an angry email, otherwise, that you can't convey tone across in a message.
Yeah,
or people have to record voice notes, and I just
know how annoying that is. Misreading a message.
Yeah. So yeah. Workflow adaptation.
Yeah, so it's I don't know. I kind of get the feeling like I wonder how much internally like Google has looked at the pandemic and went, this is completely screwed us now. I throw all the plans out the window. Then there's parts of us like I think there was opportunities to capitalize which just weren't taken.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the big message, isn't it? We can't take away from the fact that it still should have been a beta, for the 2019 through 2020.
Then 4 letters, especially in the launch, if they had them 4 letters on it, then the rollback and features just like a month before launch wouldn't have hit them like a sledgehammer. Because it's beta, and that's how the press would have been looking at it, where they expected all these cool features, then the press got their hands on straight away, and they're like, these features aren't there.
Yeah, and then when the pandemic hit, they would have had the benefit of saying, like, oh, we're going to delay the public launch of Stadia. We're going to keep it in beta a bit longer because of everything that's going on in the world. You don't have that security blanket once you take away the caveat of that, and I think it's fully out there.
Generally was quite a bit of excitement in the gaming industry press about Stadia's launch, but then the first impressions weren't good because of things. And you end up seeing like even the more negative reviews where it's like, oh, but the platform works fine. That's usually the conclusion. It's like, but the thing is, it's not at the moment. Stadia doesn't feel like an exceptional platform. Like I've mentioned before, I think it might have been on the podcast, it might have been early in the show. I did a side by side myself, just out of curiosity, on Shadow of the Tomb Raider on Stadia and PS5, and it's notably better than on PS5 graphically. So Stadia isn't keeping up at the moment on that level. So then you need to wow journalists somehow, and a lot of people entrenched in the first view on it, or as I've mentioned, they've just become completely apathetic to the platform. I think there's a general thought across a lot of gaming press that it's just a matter of time before Google pull the plug. But then because we're a bit more involved in Stadia's ecosystem, we see things like Cyberpunk and Resident Evil Village where they're putting promotions there to get the controller in the hands of people, so they can show. So they're still making moves to bring people to the platform.
Yeah. That's when that goes back though to marketing, right? They need to show. Need to, and again, now we keep saying it. A goddamn roadmap. Like, tell us that we're going to be here because everyone now has that. Like, we can probably say as well. I'm sure a lot of the viewers do that. Being silent and keeping stuff close to your chest doesn't work when people want to know you're going to exist. When we're in year 5 or 6, fair enough, keep stuff close to your chest. But when you're a new when you're a new company that it requires a user base, you need to tell us that you're going to be here this time next year, and you don't do that by being silent. As early investors, as adopters of the platform, I want to know my investment is safe.
Yeah.
You do that by talking and marketing, and there's a lot of work to be done. We're hoping on what Stadia is going to get a re-review, like IGN and all them are going to do like a year 2 review of Stadia and say, actually, the library's great, the tech works, it has a search bar now, like all that crap. But they need to play the long game, but they also need to talk about the long game.
The IGNs of the world will only do that if they think there's enough clicks in the article.
Yep.
They're not going to do it just to do it.
Give them a reason.
Yeah, you need to give them a reason.
True.
And as we come out of pandemic and stuff returns to normal, send them all a Stadia box. Send them all fancy, I don't know, Google stickers and whatever you need to do.
Get them to the Google campus. Give them a walk around. Give them some exclusives. Like, maybe not go.
Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
They've got the money. Just give them anything, but they need to do something
pixel.
They need to do something to relight it. And I think, like we're totally right. Like, yes, it's had an impact. Like it's impacted everyone and everything and every business, whether you care to admit it or not, for better or for worse. It's got everybody. It's the first time in our lifetime something globally is literally there's not a human being on this planet. I don't think, unless you're up in Antarctica or somewhere. Like I think is Antarctica the only continent not affected by this?
Probably. There's like 4 people or something there. Probably.
Yeah,
These people in Antarctica, but I think it's at best in double figures.
Yeah, exactly. So, all that aside, there's a lot of things that I think have had an impact, whether it's for better or for worse. How much of it's Stadia's own doing, we'll never probably really know, but it needs to turn a corner. And I think just like the world right now, we're starting to turn a corner, and I think stuff can return to normal, get back to business, and Google and Stadia and Mr. Phil Harrison need to start hitting these commercial beats on a regular basis, be open, do all the things we discussed, because Yeah, something needs to change.
Oh, lie. Antarctica has a couple of thousand people living. But yeah, but I think we're in agreement. They need to do something about the. I think press is the big thing because press is your marketing. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter
Free
how good your sales execs are and the billboards and all that stuff if the press are just not paying it any attention, because then you're losing out on the gaming enthusiasts there. But then it's how do you approach the casuals? How do you get the casuals in? Because this is the thing I think Google can claim a good market portion. They're not going to get the entrenched Sony or Xbox fan. But that was never on the cards.
No.
But they can get the lapsed gamers, the people who don't have much time, the people who don't want to fork out £500-600 for a console or like double that for a gaming PC. These people who want to play the games, like we've talked about things like The Sims before, things like the roller coaster tycoons of the world. They're games that I think people look back, the lapsed gamers or the casual gamers look back with nostalgia and go, love to play that. But my Chromebook doesn't run it. Oh wait, it does.
And how do you do that? Like, how does Bob, who's got 3 kids, hasn't played games in a while, his last console was maybe a PS3 or something, how does he come to know that Stadia is a thing or exists without marketing?
You need
about
to market it, and you need to market it where he's looking.
Exactly.
But then you have to have your marketing right to sell it to him. It's the difference, again, I mentioned before, it's the difference between reminding people this is a thing and selling it to them. You need to put into your marketing, this is why you should. And they've got some cool things. It costs nothing. You could play Resident Evil 7 now for nothing if you have a Gmail account, which you do because you exist. That's it.
Yeah,
it is.
Sold.
There's no caveat there because you get 1 month free with Pro. You get 1 month Pro free when you open your account, and it's currently a Pro game. You can play Resident Evil 7 free.
And Jedi Fallen Order.
Jedi Fallen Order. There's 2 massive titles straight off the back. Not even looking at the rest of the back catalogue. But then, if you get that market and you get that into the right people's minds and go, they pick up the phone, they see the advert, they install the app and go, oh, yeah, I'm in. Like, I'm literally playing it. Then that's when you're getting people into the ecosystem.
Imagine being that lapsed gamer who's not played video games in like 7-8 years, and then you boot up this free trial and you can play something like Fallen Order or Resident Evil on your phone or on your tablet. You must be like, wow, okay. I remember my PS3's 360 days, but I'm now sat on my couch with my phone playing this using like a DualShock or something like that. Crazy. But we know about it. Us 3, our viewers and audience know about it.
Yeah.
We're not the target now.
We're not. You've already got us, and you've already got our audience as well.
To stretch out and get more.
Yeah.
No excuses now.
Yeah, I'm going to be selfish here. I want a bigger audience. So if Stadia gets a bigger audience, so does Sounds of Stadia.
Wow.
You're not wrong.
Anyway, that's all we have time for you this week. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for all the awesome content that we do, such as Sounds of Stadia podcast and our live streams, our first looks. We've got several hundred videos on our channel at this point. We're definitely over 100, so anyway.
Days worth of content, Richard.
Yeah, God, yeah. It'd be interesting to actually count up how much content we've actually made to this point. But if you want to join
an operative word.
But if you listen to this and you want to do the maths, let us know in our Discord. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Richie.
I've been Tom, but I was on mute.
I've been Chris.
It wouldn't be SideQuest if something off the rails didn't happen. Thank you very much for watching. Quest completed.